What, my picture?
In general.
Well, it's pretty good in my bedroom. So we're going live. Hi, guys. I'm here. A few minutes early. Hopefully, we won't have any issues. We were careful to make sure the computer was plugged in all the way, so it won't suddenly lose its battery and we won't have to go to a new feed. So I have had a couple of people write in some questions to my email account that I gave you guys for that purpose. Ironically, the person that asked me to do that in the first place hasn't sent in their question, but it got the ball rolling for a couple of other people. And so welcome to the show. Let's see what we're going to have to talk about. So one of the questions I've already gotten that I can get started with now, since the people that sent them in are going to want to find the answers to their questions easily, is he says, please give examples of magical attack where you prepare yourself and use your hand fast, like in a dream, as example, or where you have needed to block something and why it came. Now, so this question has been generated by my most recent video on the pentagram, and in it, when I was explaining the pentagram, I had, talked about creating a version of the pentagram in my hand where I could just push it out really fast and use it if I needed to, because I had it happen during a dream where it seemed something was attacking me and I was drawing the pentagram in the air and it was still coming at me as I was drawing the pentagram. And so I worried that that was a little bit slow. And Ian, my husband, had talked to me about the idea of just throwing the full-blown pentagram. So I started focusing on the notion of programming that. So the question about magical attack, I don't have it happen to me very often, but it has happened to me from time to time. And generally, it's been for a specific reason. Someone who I've met in person who is upset with me because I'm not conforming to their idea of what I should be doing. And, they decide to try and send me some negative energy. One in particular that happened a number of times was a shape of a dog growling that would come at me on occasion when I was getting ready to go to sleep. And with those, I don't think that happened in a dream. That was just like, on my way to go to sleep. And then I would toss it out. I actually set up a trap on the astral plane to try and catch it. But then the last time it happened, I forgot about that and I just automatically tossed it out. And the fact is that magical attacks are not all that common. So hopefully you don't need to use it that much. So any of these things, it's like knowing yourself is key to being able to tell whether or not someone else is sending you energy. If you aren't aware of your own energy and what it feels like, then you can get confused, especially in a dream, where it seems like it's somebody else, but it's really you. So I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question. It's just that doing the meditations, the shadow work, the practice of using the symbols, becoming more aware of what's in your subconscious, what your voice sounds like, and the inner voice thing, to be clear, if your inner voice is telling you that you're a terrible person and you don't measure up, that's not your inner voice. Your inner voice is always going to be encouraging and want to move you in a good direction. That voice is your critical voice, and that's part of shadow work, is learning how to identify that and get that done. So I'm really not sure how to answer that. I prepare before I go to sleep. So I have things around my bed that ground me. I cast my circle around my room before I go to sleep at night. Sometimes I call in different, the Garuda who likes to protect us. I sometimes call him in before I go to sleep. And if you want to know more about how I use the pentagram, you can watch the most recent video. So that's about all I can really say without feedback on answering that question. So, hi, David. We're actually doing pretty good today. And so I had a run in with my body this week and discovered that, my body is aging and sometimes it wants to make sure I know that. So I had a major back tweak on Tuesday, but I've recovered from that at this point. I think I have a herniated disc that I was unaware of because I'd never been in the right position to have that happen. So, yeah, doing all right, but kind of annoyed at having an aging body. Hi, Violet. And then Vitalia says, hello, lovely to see you. Wish you a beautiful day. And Taylor says, just curious, are there any types of witches like in categories of magic use? That is like the definition of what kind of a witch someone is. And those are labels that we create. And I don't really relate to them. Having to create a label, I'm a universalist eclectic witch. I mean, yeah. I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Some people have certain predilections.
Right, some people are better at certain types of magic than other kinds, and they identify themselves as like a green witch because they work with plants and herbs, and a kitchen witch because they do a lot of cooking and use their cooking kitchen stuff for doing magic and that kind of thing. Some people identify as cosmic witches because they do astrology. Well, Christian witches, which I can't comprehend personally, but if it works for them, that's great that it works for them. So it's like people like the idea of having a label, it seems. I don't. I mean, labels don't make me feel safe or comfortable. They make me feel restricted, and I tend to fight them if someone tries to put one on me. When I was a psychic healer up in Canada, and people were like, this is how a psychic healer behaves, and I'm going like, oh, really? So then I went to a party and in public and was like apparently scandalous because I danced and I wasn't behaving like a psychic healer should behave. So yeah, when I discover that someone has tried to stick me into a label with barricades around it, I tend to go out and get a sledgehammer and start knocking things down. So it's easy enough to find the different definitions of kinds of witches, and then there's like the black, white, gray, green, whatever kind of thing as well. And these are constructions, human constructions that we create in order to try and define ourselves. So hopefully that answers that question. Stay safe and healthy. Yes, doing our best. Not wanting to bend over much at the moment because of the thing with my back. It wasn't a big thing I was doing. I was just putting my cell phone in my purse and bent over to do it, and my back just went, are you insane? What are you up to? And that was the end of that for 2 days. I was kind of stuck in a chair with pain medication, backpacks, and braces, hot packs and braces. So that was like so much fun. So, so I guess I have another question, but I can get to that one a little bit later if you guys have some you want to throw at me right now. Thinking about the attack stuff, and that voice, being able to identify it is just so key. My first husband, I've mentioned briefly here and there, he was a sociopath and a serial rapist, and he's been gone from my life for a long, long time. And he attempted to make contact with our son, I guess we could say, and had his son send me an email, which sort of got an entire weird thing going for a brief moment, an opportunity to learn more about boundaries. And I sent a message back after I contacted my son to his son and told him, that my son didn't want to have any contact if they thought that their father was a great guy, and let him know that he had gone to prison for rape when my son was 2 months old. And I went to bed that night, And everything was normal and usual for a while, and then all of a sudden I started hearing this little voice in my head, and it was saying things like, I can always find you, you can never get away from me, there's nothing you can do about it, there's nowhere you can hide. And I realized that that was my ex's voice, and I thought, oh, really? So I did what I can do, and I sent all that energy directly back to him, and then I sort of consciously blocked any more energy from coming towards me. So it was interesting, that whole encounter. There's always challenges and always opportunities to decide who you're going to let into your space and who you're going to make leave your space. And that's part of all of us go through that, whether we're witches or pagans or magic users or not, because that's always a struggle trying to figure out. And the fight between the expectations that were laid on us by our parents, our culture, society, our religion we grew up in, prevailing views and so forth, and then what our actual needs are and where those fit and where they meet, and sometimes be a very dynamic area. And sometimes we decide to go along with the flow of whatever is around us, even if it doesn't suit us. And then sometimes we choose to sort of, forge ahead on our own path. So that's kind of, where that is. So it's always interesting. So injury in the cold October, November months, I felt 3 times in October. Odd. Yeah, well, cold is more damaging to the human body, I think, than warmth. So that's probably that. So I brought along something to show you guys, because somebody sent me in a question and was wondering about meditation and, how do you fit it into your schedule and do it? And I was trying to explain that it doesn't have to be like, for hours a day. There's different kinds of meditation that you can do. So you can do it while you're walking, while you're driving, by being aware of your environment. You can take some breaths and bring yourself, back to the present moment. One of the goals of a lot of meditation is to bring you into your life and into the here and the now. Even if it looks from the outside like you're zoning out and kind of leaving the space, is to get acquainted with yourself and your own existence and so forth. So little things add up. It's like, you do it here, you do it there, and do it when you need it, do it when you can. You can do it when you're making crafts. You can do it when you're walking from, class to class if you happen to be in school. You can decide you're going to check in with yourself every time you go through a door. You can just think about these things and create life triggers that make you check in with yourself. And that works for physical therapy kind of stuff as well. I do that with some of my massage clients when they need to be aware of what their body is doing. And one of them was a teacher, and she came up with every time she looked at a clock to see what time it was, she checked in with her body. But she did that so many times throughout the day and created that as a habit. And that helped her to be aware of her own physicality and her position, what she was doing with her body, take a moment to relax so she wasn't being tense. And so there's a lot of stuff like that. Devil Blue says, why would someone into esoteric arts advise against using talismans, amulets, and crystals, as they would bring bad health upon me? I had a weird feeling about such advice. Any thoughts? Well, it sounds like they're projecting their own anxieties and fears onto everyone else. I mean, you see that happen a lot in pagan groups. Like just this morning, someone was asking about making wands, and one person felt they needed to get on there and warn everybody in the universe to never cut a wand from a living tree because it was like a horrible thing to do. And, obviously not good for that person to do it, but doesn't mean it's horrible for everyone. So, I mean, talismans, if you know what the talisman, I wouldn't recommend just getting a talisman from anybody. Making your own is safer because then you know what's in it and what it's for, and it suits you specifically, and same with an amulet, or like a spirit seal, or a protective seal of some kind from a book. They have power in and of themselves to a certain extent, but their main power is in your understanding of what they represent and your connection to that energy. So maybe that person doesn't know how to ground, and was using like the wrong kind of talisman or amulet and got themselves all out of whack. I mean, Ian and I did a protective, would you call that an amulet or a talisman that we did for the karate guy?
Well, that would be a talisman. An amulet specifically is usually a written form of prayer of some sort,
and not just a symbol.
Right.
So we made a talisman. This guy was in fear for his physical safety, had someone who was hunting him with a gun. Seemed like it was something we should do. And so, Ian and I got together and decided what form it was going to take, what forces we wanted to put in it. We created it, we filled it up with energy for his protection, and we gave it to him. And the first time he put it on, he couldn't wear it because we had so much energy in it that he was unfamiliar with and unadapted to, that it kind of blew his energy field wide open. And so he called us up and told us about this reaction. So it was an interesting learning experience for us because we hadn't considered that, because we're used to working with energy. It's kind of like our normal space, and not realizing not everybody is like that. Needed a reminder for that. And so we figured out that's what it was. And what we recommended was he wear it for like 10 minutes at a time and then take it off, and slowly allow his energy field to adapt to its energy so that he could wear it for longer periods of time. I'm glad to say he, as far as I know, is perfectly safe. And he left our area not long after that, I think a few months into that whole situation, and he moved to another state. But we had heard from him quite a while back, and he was fine. So that's the other thing. It's like everyone's energy is so different. We're all on different pages and different points in our development. And so what works for one person is going to be too much for another, or not work for another, because if you don't have that connection to it, it doesn't matter how powerful a symbol it might be for someone else. If it doesn't feel resonate with you, then it's just going to be a drawing on a piece of paper or on a piece of metal. So I would say make your own decision when it comes to that, and remember that people project onto other people on a regular basis. Very few people are clear. I was just talking about that yesterday. Like, there are a few people I can sit down and just have a conversation with, not have to worry about what I say. They understand what I mean by the words that I'm using, and we just have a conversation, and we do our thing, and then we separate and go our way, and everything is fine. But with most people are always looking for what's wrong with this conversation with this other person, because their inner voice has told them there's something wrong with them. And so they're waiting to get that affirmed by others. And so instead of hearing the actual words or feeling the actual energy that's coming from someone, they filter it through this projection of their own. And so it goes out from them, and then it comes back to them as this thing that's not the same as what you meant by what you said. And I'm sure, most of us have had that kind of encounter at least a few times, where you say something that seems perfectly normal and innocent to you, and then you get this like, wow, what? What was that about? And usually that's what it is. They're not actually in their own life enough and in their own mind to be able to comprehend what you're talking about from your point of view. And that's a problem with communication. So Don says, greetings. Greetings, Don. Marisol says, wow, that happens to me a lot with my sister. Don says, finally caught a live episode. Yay. Yay for you. So the other question, I only got 2 of them in my emails. The other question was from a young I don't know how old she is. She's just I know she's a lady from how she spoke. At least I'm assuming she's a lady. Anyway. Um, and that when she was little, she encountered a sound, sound of a flute playing. And she was small, living in Venezuela. And it sounded like tribal music. And she was very attracted to it. It was something that seemed out of the ordinary and important. It felt important. And every so often throughout the course of her life, she hears that flute music again. And she is wondering whether or not it's a spirit, an angel, or a fairy, and what kinds of entities are associated with the flute. Now, that is not an easy answer. Well, yeah, I was reading about that in the research that I was doing about the flute music in the Indian Kundalini meditation and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of cultures that have the flute, and I did find out that in Ecuador, flute music is extremely important to their tribal community. So it's considered like, sort of a core identity, similar to the Native American, North American flute in here for the indigenous people. But then we know that the Greeks had the flute with Pan and his panpipes and all this other stuff. So there is a very wide association of flute music with different kinds of spirits. I understand that the fairy folk, and there's stories about them and the kind of music that they have, and certainly bells, flutes, drums, things that have natural sounds to them seem to be indicative of that. My guess would be that this was like her personal spirit guardian trying to get her attention, and that's the reason why, even though she no longer lives in Ecuador, I'm assuming from the way she worded her question, that every so often it wants to make her come out of herself and realize that she's not alone, that energy and presence is still there. It sounds like a wonderful experience and a very positive one. So personally, I wouldn't be worried about it at all. And in my research, I discovered that there's a medical condition that they call, with people who've lost their hearing or don't have good hearing, who hear music and voices and all this other stuff. So that was sort of an interesting little rabbit hole I went down when I was trying to figure out how to answer the question. And I guess some antihistamines can make you hear music. I think it was Claritin was one of them, and I'm not sure what the other one was now. I'd have to look it back up again, but you could find it because it's all over the internet. People who hear music that isn't their auditory hallucinations. And of course, anything that you experience that other people in the room with you can't hear, see, taste, feel, smell, whatever, is considered a hallucination by scientists because it's not gross matter. But if you're grounded in reality, you know who you are, you know where you are, you know what you're doing, you don't have a problem with your sense of time in, being able to communicate with other people, it's more likely to be a psychic ability than it is to be, a medical condition. So I guess that's all I can say on that matter. So yay, now that we're all here. So I brought something to show everybody on the subject of small things becoming something different. And I showed you my collar last time. I know it wasn't very easy to see, but one of my beaded creations that I make. And I started making larger ones because we were going through a huge crisis financially and all this other stuff that was happening that I had no control over. I had to wait for other forces to align themselves and get their acts together and figure out how to sort of walk through the bureaucracies of things that I had. So I started making a much larger piece, and that started me on a path of making some larger pieces. So it's over here. If I can get this up here so you can see it. I have to wait for this to catch up so I can make sure I'm where I'm at. Okay, I put it up a little bit higher. So this is my peacock that I made. And this is all very small. Well, not all of it are tiny, tiny beads. I used some larger beads for the actual tail down in here, and the smaller beads for up at the top. But I wanted to make a representation of my idea of the water element spirit being, and so that's what I created. And this took like a couple of years to make, so I'll put this down again. And the thing is that when you start a project, a big project like that, it is you can't see what the completed result is going to be. You're looking at it really close, and you're working these tiny little beads and working this pattern, and there's a lot of time and energy involved in it. And when you're done, it becomes this like amazing piece of art that you can hang on your wall. But that's the same as like magic, meditation, learning, all these different things that there are out there to learn about. It's like you don't always see the full picture until a lot later. And so that's why I wanted to share that. So thank you. I'm glad you like it. It is beautiful. Mary says, hi Siofra, I recently had an astrology reading and was told that the world in general, and I in particular, am dealing with healing masculine energy wounds. Do you have any suggestions? Well, in our personal lives, if as women, healing negative masculine energy wounds is probably a pretty predictable thing to have to do, considering most of our society is not very aware or enlightened or in a lot of ways caring. There's a lot of bad ideas out there about how people should act with each other. And hopefully the planet is going into a phase like that. I don't know if it's true or not. Astrology can give you an indication of the forces that are around you and the things that might come up, but then it's up to you to decide how you're going to deal with that. Healing yourself and becoming your unique version of who you are is going to be your best way of doing that. Therapy is not a bad idea, especially if you've had traumatic and violent events that have resulted in emotional damage, like I've had, and you know, a lot of us have had. I think a fair number of pagans end up in this community because normal stuff doesn't seem to fit them very well, and the experience that they have with existence isn't matching what the ideal is supposed to be of how people are supposed to behave, I guess. I don't know. Questioning whether God is real and that kind of stuff can lead to exploring alternative types of ways of thinking. But the shadow work is about that. So if you heal yourself, then you can, it's easier to identify when negative energy is coming at you, and creating those boundaries and deciding that negative energy is not okay with you. That's part of this process. If you're going to be a self, what's the word? You're in charge of your own development. So, yeah, well, no, that's not actually what I meant. No, I mean if you're self propelled, you're in charge of figuring out how this is all going to work, which sometimes is annoying. It'd be nice if there was just like, here you go, here's a list of things you can do and everything will be fine. Because we all have different levels and different damage that we have to figure out how to heal in ourselves, and different attitudes we need to look at and decide whether they serve us or not, assumptions about reality and that kind of thing. The idea that a lot of women have that there's something wrong with them if they're not with a partner. I mean, when I was little, the whole goal was to find a man and get married. My mother gave me these instructions on, you know, what to do and all this other stuff. It's like, and of course, movies sort of reinforce that kind of thing. So it doesn't matter about your astrology reading in the larger sense, because this is the work we all should be doing. We should all be trying to heal ourselves, because healing ourselves is kind of the point. To be able to have clear communication with someone else, you have to know your own self first. And you have to watch out for the toxic positivity potential in that statement, because I don't mean that, everything's going to be a-okay and anything like that. And it's okay not to feel that way as well. I mean, it's just the way things are where we're going through our stuff. So sometimes people are like really judgy of their own behavior where they would be forgiving of someone else's. It's kind of annoying what we do. Let's see. So Violet says, did you ever think longer on the opening of the box from the magician thing, like lighting stage and out on a deck or wide open space maybe, and or not necessary because if there's magic in it, it will be there opening it or not it anyway? Yeah, so I suspect from what you've told me about your situation that the person you're buying this from isn't paying particular attention to you. And if you didn't cancel the order and you're not receiving it, then you don't have, if you did cancel the order and you're not getting it, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff at all. If you did get the order and decided to open it and you didn't like the way it felt, you certainly can cleanse it. I think the easiest way to cleanse an item like that would be with a piece of selenite, really, when it comes down to it. The selenite just sort of chases away negative energy. It can't really coexist with it. It's that natural state of light, lifelike kind of stuff. And then charge it up on your own. I don't think that the stuff you're getting is supposed to be pre-charged. I looked at his site to see what kinds of stuff he had to offer, and I didn't see those kind of key phrases in there. They were just like items made a certain way. And so that's all I can think of with that. But follow your instincts. I mean, if you're feeling nervous about it, it could be there's a reason you're feeling nervous about it, or it could be projection on your own part, thinking that someone is trying to do some harm to you, whether they are or not. So that's one of those, gray areas where you have to decide how you want to respond. And there's nothing wrong with responding as if it was the worst case scenario, even if it turns out to be projection. So Sophia says, do you have any key tips to astral projection? It happened to me once about 11 years ago. I panicked and go back, and since then, nothing. I'm trying now, but no result. Yeah, so I've had lots of spontaneous astral projections, and I tend not to do it much anymore. And I think that that's probably because I'm too grounded, or not too grounded, because I'm more grounded and I do more mental travel. And so it's most of those things, when you learn how to do them, it's easier to do than you think. And usually people are trying too hard and they're blocking themselves from doing it. But try not to worry about it. I mean, if you're gonna get back to that and be able to do it, you may be in a different phase right now. You need to work on something else. A lot of times when you start this process here, your natural gifts will go away, or seem to go away, because you're not balanced in the first place. A lot of us are born with extreme gifts. That's part of our issue, is that we have these amazing abilities, but we don't know how to control them, and they sort of get out of hand. And then getting onto this path, you sort of take a step back and you start trying to see in yourself how you balance the elements within you, create the healthy boundaries, have control, learn how to ground, center, and shield. And until you get through that process, being able to spontaneously do something that you used to do before may not happen for a long time. So, the psychic abilities aren't the goal of the work that we do. It's a natural result of what we do. And it sort of happens as, when it's ready to happen. So that's how I would look at it. Hope that's helpful. I don't know. So Violet says he responded saying he handmade the gift, and maybe his delay is charging it for all I know, but his lack of communication got me. He has been good to me and I have learned a lot. I will let you know if it ever arrives. Yeah, that's a boundary issue you need to decide for yourself, for sure, and decide what works for you. Marisol says, how can you find out your gifts if you have them? Well, if you're born with extreme gifts, you don't have a choice but figure out what they are, because you suddenly have premonitions all the time and you see the future, or you see spirits and they come up and ask you to help them or annoy you like they did me when I was little, or, you know, yeah, they're kind of like in your face, those types of gifts. That doesn't mean if you didn't have them that you're not going to develop them. And sometimes developing them later after the groundwork is done is definitely safer and much better. Empaths often feel like their gift of being an empath is both a curse and a blessing, but that's because they haven't learned how to control their feelings and allowing or not allowing other people's feelings to come in and affect them. And so you can learn how to control that. And I'm definitely in the category of an extreme empath, but I've learned a lot about blocking and seeing things from a different perspective, so sort of from a distance. I know what they're feeling, but I don't have to be the feeling anymore in order to know what it is. So then I can be there with someone who's going through a crisis, but not have to break down completely and lose control in the process. And that actually makes me more useful to other people and to myself. So then I'm not like, falling apart, which is annoying, because then you have to figure out what to do to put yourself back together. So there's a reason for all the different things that people do. It's like the exercises, the meditations, the, sitting with certain objects, the learning to clear your energy field, learning what your inner voice is, and the difference between your inner voice, your true inner voice, and that inner critic. It's like all this stuff is connected. And some people are going to have more ability than others, just because, like, some people are born with better brains for playing chess or for playing music, or, and that might be because of other past lives that they've gone through. So it does not necessarily mean that they're a better quality human being because they're born with a gift. It just means that that's where they are right now. And it's a wonderful thing to see, to know how far we could take things. But, I had trouble trying to figure out what my gift was, because when I would meet them, it would be clear to me that they had like one singular thing that they excelled at, that they were just like, this one thing was just so clearly their gift. And I didn't know what my gift could be, because I could do anything I tried. Anything I put my mind to, I could do it, and I could do it well. And so it was a long time for me to realize that really my main gift was healing. And, doing the psychic healing. People kept telling me I should become a massage therapist, and I was slow, but, I got there. So, but I have a lot of developed clear abilities. And speaking of which, the smelly fairy things came back last night. And so that was kind of nice. They were in the middle of the night, and I was seeing lights sort of like flowing over my head. It was like a circle of light, and it would go like whoosh like this, and back it kept on coming, and that kind of thing, which was sort of interesting. And then I had a dream a couple of days before, which was really positive. So I was encouraged by that. I have garden dreams. Well, when I was first going through this and things were really dark and I was in therapy and I was struggling to get out of that place with all the abuse and stuff that I'd suffered, I would have dreams of gardens in closets. I would like open up a closet and there'd be these flowers inside this closet that were blooming. And I knew that that was like a positive thing, because I had been trying to save, rescue, protect these special things that were a part of me that other experiences were trying to destroy. This one, now my gardens aren't in the closet anymore, so that's good. And I looked out my window, and I had apparently gotten some interesting exotic seeds. I'm not sure where from or when I got them, but I did. I got them, and I had planted them. And when I looked out the window, there were all these vines of exotic flowers with buds on them that hadn't opened yet, and they were covering the trees and a trellis and all this. And they were like, they were big. They were these big flowers, and I was very excited that to see what they looked like when they opened up, because I thought, well, this is going to be fantastic. So I took that as an extremely positive sign that my internal landscape is definitely progressing in the right direction. And so that was cool. So Wicca Doll says, what are the odds that we have a lot of mythical creatures people cast as fake living among us? Surely those paintings were the inspiration of something, no? Well, I mean, the magical people that coexisted in the tribes and Aboriginal cultures, you're talking about like cave art and that kind of thing, and then other drawings and so forth. Some of those I'm sure are real, and I've met a few in reality. Some of those, like the fever dreams that came out of the Christian religion during the Middle Ages of demons and creatures and, fear and stuff like that, are projections, I think, of anxieties and things like that. So some of them may be real and some of them may not be real. So I'm not sure if that answers that question. Sophia says, what is the difference between mental and astral? Okay, so you have different planes. You've got your physical plane where your body and your senses and your interactions with the real world exist solidly. You have your astral body and your astral plane. Your astral body is where all your emotions are, your feelings, strong feelings and things like that. And that is in the astral plane. And then the mental plane is where thoughts, ideas, perceptions of things reside. And then the one above that is Akasha, where all potential and all results are existing simultaneously. Like all time, all space, all things are in the Akasha. And if you think about it this way, this is the easiest way to explain what the different planes are. So the Akasha has got all that potential. It's like any idea, thought, anything, any outcome is there. And then at some point, one of those potentials drifts down into the mental plane, and you see this happen sometimes on a worldwide level, where there will be like 5 people on the planet who've never met each other that all come up with the same idea at the same time. That's an example of that at work. But getting more basic, there's an idea of a chair, let's say. So you have the idea of a chair, and in order to make the chair, you have to like draw a diagram and create a pattern for the chair. That would be all in the mental plane. But then you have to have the energy and the will and the passion to actually go and produce the chair. So you have to like go find the right kind of wood and mold it and put it together and nail it to create that chair before it becomes physical. So the mental is the idea, the astral is the passion and the will to make the idea reality, and the physical is what the result is. And everything here has been done that way. Everything we have in our homes started off as an idea in somebody else's head, and then if the things were lined up correctly, it came down and then became something that we can use. So if you think of it that way, it kind of helps to make that distinction. And so mental travel is easier because you don't have to have the emotions that come with the astral body. You can I can see what's going on in my mind's eye, and then I can do things and interact with what I find. I can do a healing, cut cords, or find out what's there, send healing energy, whatever. from the mental plane and not have to worry about engaging like my entire being and all my emotions and stuff in it. So it leaves me freer um, to accomplish things without potential negative results, especially as an empath. So hopefully that's a good explanation. That helps with that. Okay, so Madeline says, do you believe in extraterrestrial entities? If so, do you think it's possible to have a portal where these beings can travel in one's home? Well, this is a subject I try to not get too involved in because not just that it's controversial, but it's like if it happens and we have to figure out what to do with it, there's always the possibility. I've seen a few things myself, but I'm not interested in communicating with extraterrestrial intelligences because we need to learn how to take care of our own backyard and our own planet. That's my personal take on that. So I try to stay grounded in this reality on this earth, and if they want to talk to me, then they'll have to make more of an effort. Let's put it that way. Prone to sleep paralysis and would feel her footsteps in my room, then later would see entities like the Glimmer Man or goblins at the foot of my bed. Yeah, so that is like sleep paralysis. It's kind of like a whole ball game of weird stuff that can go on in that. And if it's a goblin, there are actual goblins. They're part of the fairy folk. So it could be a goblin and not an ET. We're interpreting things. So, and if you can hear their footsteps, yeah, I don't know exactly what to say about that. So, apparently something I said was a good explanation. I'm happy. David says, hello, I stumbled upon you this morning doing a little research on the Fae and I was drawn to your video. Thank you. I think it's good that more of us are having positive interactions with the Fae because they exist around us all the time and they're not human, they're definitely different. But I think if we're going to be healing the planet, working towards changing our attitudes towards life itself and climate change, and it's good that there's more of us that are learning how to interact with them more directly, and I think that they appreciate that. Do you think that the pictorial view of the Goetta spirits is like one man's picture of them? The Goetta, I've seen the pictures, but a lot of times that's what they are. They're a person's individual perception of what they are. A spirit doesn't have a body, so it's not stuck in a certain shape. And some spirits like to lie, and some spirits like to tell the truth, and some spirits, when you look at like channeling, and I did channeling for a number of years, and if you look in historical records of other people that have channeled, one of the things that comes out is that the information that comes through is colored by the understanding and internal perceptions of the channel themselves. So the more clear the channel is, the more accurate or useful the information might be, but it's always going to be somewhat colored by the society that's happening at the time, the life of the person who's the channel, their religious or spiritual beliefs. And so, like with John Dee, for example, and Enochian stuff, he was a Christian at the time. He lived at a time when the Inquisition was in full bloom. There was always the risk at any moment that he could end up being burned at the stake, or if he was in England, so he would have been hung as being a heretic or a witch. And so the only way his information could come through him and succeed and be safe would be through the idea or the lens of the angelic realm as seen by Christianity. Now, I personally don't think that angels are Christian. I think that Christians definitely have adopted them and they've written all kinds of books and all kinds of things about them that are interesting, But I think that as a being, spirit being, they exist regardless of whether there's people and regardless of what our beliefs might be. And so when you're looking to ancient manuscripts and trying to figure out what they're talking about, one of the things you need to keep in mind are what are the prevailing views at the time, and what was the societal situation at the time, and what would be the likely outcome. This information survived for a reason. And the reason his information survived is that he convinced everybody that he was talking to angels and angels were okay. So that's like trying to get away from the human interpretation of all reality is what I'm trying to do, because that's what this is. This is a human interpretation of reality, and the reality itself might be completely different. Same like with the Fae. It's the same type of idea. Let's see. Sophia says, thank you, very helpful. Rose says, hello, beautiful. I got blooming flowers last winter during snow. Oh, that's nice. I believe it's because I asked the native chief of this town where I live to be my spirit guide. I believe it's a yes from him. That would sound like a sign. It would be a good thing. Have you ever met a Goetta spirit? Well, it depends on what you mean by a Goetic spirit. My husband has met one. We had to have a conversation with him because of the guy who was attacking me with the growling dog. And the Goetic spirits are usually considered demons. So I don't work with demons, so I don't bother with them at all. And I know the word demon doesn't have to mean demon as in, horns and bad or what have you, but there's a lot of things out there to work with, so I sort of choose what I want to work with. So I don't know. I guess is the short answer to that. Sophia says, oh my, I had once sleep paralysis and felt that someone small like a gnome walking under my blanket, and then a small motor was noisy near my ear, and then I felt someone standing near my head and stabbing. Oh, that's a very unpleasant experience. I was out in the woods and I was pretty convinced that a raccoon had climbed up on my sleeping bag because the wind was moving my sleeping bag and it sure felt like little feet, and I was yelling trying to wake myself up. So I don't know. What happens to you ends up being what you tend to focus on. So if it's not what you want to focus on, you have to focus on other things and change the conversation with the universe. That's all I can say. David says, all my life, I know I have been able to sense a presence when it has appeared. I am very sensitive to emotion, and lately witchcraft, videos, books, etc. have been popping up all around me. Oh, I forgot, is the Goetta unsafe? Not necessarily, it depends. Not my cup of tea, but so back to David. I've had a presence since I was little too, so that's sort of like my spirit guide ever since I can remember. I've been seeing her. Wiggly Worm says, do you know of anything energetically I can do to contribute to progress in world issues like racial inequality, corruption, climate change, poverty, etc.? Work in your own community. Find something real that is happening in your neighborhood. Find an organization that is working towards that end and support it. Volunteer at a homeless shelter or an unhomed shelter, or do some real world stuff, and that will probably have more of an impact than a ritual that you can do. Nothing wrong with doing the ritual too. We have our broader rituals that we're doing to try and help on that level, like the Amethyst Crystal Project, where we're charging up crystals every full moon and trying to make the energy of joy, peace, and tranquility available for people who want to use it. And so there's nothing wrong with that. We have an earth ball that we charge up to send energy to the planet. When we do healing circles, any extra energy we have left over, we give to the earth ball, and then we give to the earth beneath us. But living your life to the best of your ability and becoming as conscious and individual and healthy an individual as you can, mentally, emotionally, psychically, spiritually, is going to be of the most benefit to everyone around you. We all have our sort of little universes that are within our sphere. So that would be what I would suggest for that. Let's see. Sophia says, in my face like that, taking some of... Okay, you're going to have to re-say that one. In my face like that, taking some of XM in toe spots. Okay, that one I'm not quite figuring out how to unscramble in my head. I really believe in signs. Should I take this as a sign, says David. Well, it's certainly a signpost, and you can follow the signpost and see where it leads, and then you can decide whether it's right for you or not. It's nothing wrong with changing your mind. That's the thing. It's like that's what a self-determined existence is about. Every choice you make is going to lead you in a slightly different direction. And the universe is always putting signs and posts and stuff in our way. And that's been my philosophy. The things that I've done, the universe has placed before me, and I look at it and decide whether it's something I'm interested in picking up and running with, or something I'm going to just walk by and not do that. Not right then, maybe never. So, it's like, yeah, individual journey. You're not committed just because you decide you want to be, I guess. So Violet says, I understand now. Thank you for the Goetta answers. I have an interest in that they are connected to the dark side of the color of the zodiac, like yin and yang, possibly. Dawn says, I'm having an unthinkable amount of accidents lately, weird accidents. Any thoughts? Okay, weird accidents. So either someone's trying to get your attention, or you're not paying attention to your environment. I mean, I lived with a psychologist for 5 years, and he was trying to, everything that happened had to have some kind of a reason for it. And at the end of that 5 years, I wanted to kill him. I really did. And save the world some trouble, because if I stubbed my toe, it was journaling, it was, hypnosis, self-hypnosis. Is this a message from the other side? Is this like some kind of a, meaning from a past life, or whatever? And I'm like, sometimes if you stub your toe, it's because you're not in your body, you're not paying attention to where you're walking, and your body says, hey, hello, I'm here. So it depends on what kind of accidents you're having. And it could be a warning to pay attention to certain kinds of things in your life that is trying to get your attention so that you fix something before it becomes a bigger something. Or it could just be that you're distracted and it's, the universe is like, hey, you, what you doing? I don't know. It's your life. You have to figure these things out for yourself. That's the annoying thing about this path. No one can actually tell you what's going on, for sure. I have my ideas based upon my experience, but they're my ideas and they're based upon my experience. And so anything I say is, you're quite free to completely ignore it, and I won't feel offended. So there. Okay, so Trey says, hope you are well. I have a question in regards to speaking to deities, ancestors. How do they speak to you? And Dawn says she's been cleaning and clearing, so that could be why you're having accidents. Okay, so I think that the gods, if we have a connection with them, speak to us in different ways, and usually they're not subtle. I mean, the ones that I've had have not been subtle. Like, I've been minding my own business, and all of a sudden, bam, there they are, and they're like, oh, what you doing? What you up to? What's happening? And I'm like, okay. So, not everybody has that experience. And some of us who have had that experience say, well, you may not believe that gods are real, but if one finds you, then after that you won't have any doubts. So, sometimes I get a headache when I touch amethyst. Is this a bad sign? Well, it might mean that there's either something in the amethyst that you need, and that you're not in tune with, or you could be allergic to them, because some people are allergic to different stones. Yes, I heard that he died. Alex Trebek. David said, or Devil Blue says, I love how grounded you are. Well, so I had to work for that too. I can tell you, I was definitely not grounded as a child. I have to work on it every single day. David Valesco says, I also frequently have deja vu, and usually I recall moments them from dreams. I also get whiffs of people's perfume or cologne from past loved ones. Yeah, I've been getting that clair aliens is what they call phantom smells. And deja vu, when I have a lot of them, I figure that means that I'm on the path I've been looking at in my dreams because I've already checked it out. And I did have some of that kind of stuff when I was a kid. One in particular, I dreamt that I got on, we had these like metal doors on the outside of the apartment complex that we lived in on base. And I dreamt that I went sliding down them and they were hot and they burned my butt and my legs. And then that day I did it, and when I did it, then I remembered the dream, and I was really, really mad because I didn't remember the dream till it happened. So it was very annoying. But yeah, that kind of stuff happens, and I think that's a connection with the Akasha a lot. So let's see. Thank you. I appreciate the compliments. Taylor says, I have found a few seeds in my house. Feels like a good thing. Do you have any thoughts? Well, seeds are symbols of the Akasha. So, I mean, if you're looking at the symbolism, the seed has the potential of whatever the plant is inside. It's got its entire life cycle in there. Its potential to get the ingredients and the environment that it needs in order to grow, like, the water and the soil and the sun, and becomes from this tiny little thing an entire plant, sometimes even a tree. I mean, it's just amazing, really, when you think about it. And then it's going to bloom and go to seed and leave more seeds behind for the next cycle. So there's a lot of symbolism when it comes to seeds. And right now, especially during the dark months of the year, this is when we're trying to work on planting seeds in ourselves so that come spring they'll be there to grow. Or if you're in the southern hemisphere, you have a different environment going on. Can't forget that not everyone is here in where I'm sitting. But yeah, so if they feel like a good sign, why not take it as one? Even if it's not. If it feels like a good sign and you decide to embrace it as a good sign, then it becomes a good sign, right? That's what I think anyway. Sophia says, the gnomes from the previous comment, it's felt like they are taking an examination with a needle from 2 spots from my face, and then I fall back to sleep. Yeah, that doesn't sound very comfortable. So you might want to put up some kind of a word that says gnomes not allowed in my bedroom when I'm sleeping, if it's gnomes. And, when it comes to ET kind of stuff, my philosophy or theory, if you want to call it, I don't know what to call it, is that magic, what we're learning, what we're doing, comes from the Earth, the planet that we're on. So if anything is going to protect us from intrusion, unwanted intrusion, it will be understanding and being able to use the energy of the planet that we are on. It's our birthright because we're here. So use that. Start practicing and see what happens. Practice casting a circle around your bed. You can try, one of the things that Barden recommends is taking a new knife and copper wire, and you wrap the copper wire around the hilt of the knife and at the head of the bed, and you put the hilt or the point of the knife in the floor, or facing the floor, and then wrap that copper wire around your bed frame so it grounds you all the way around the entire bed frame, and then wrap it back around the knife. So you're creating like a grounding circuit around. And that's supposed to help keep other thoughts and other energies away from you while you're sleeping. So there's no reason not to try it. It could work. And then, casting the circle around your bedroom at night before going to sleep, or having stones that you use that you've charged up for putting in the corners to protect your sleeping space, making a statement to your higher self, guardian angel, guardian spirit, powers that be, whatever it is, or a god or goddess that you're working with, that you feel vulnerable when you're sleeping and you would like to have some protection, making a clear statement to the universe that your sleep is important to you and it's not okay to have it disrupted. I made my house a ghost-free zone because I'm sensitive enough to spirits that when I'm traveling or sleeping anywhere, if I don't do that and make a clear barricade that says, don't bother me, when you're sleeping, they're going to notice you because, it's like, wow, look at that. There's some weird light coming out of that thing. What is that doing? And it could be that this is nothing more than it's being interested in you because you're still and it sees some energy coming off of you and it's curious about it. Or maybe something else. But either way, it's your space. You need to claim it and say what is and isn't okay. Like the fairies that come into my room have permission to be there. They didn't come in just because. I invited them. I said it was okay. And they're working with me. And this is the time that they work with me. And so, I don't have a problem with that. But if they were doing, mean things or scary things, then we would have a different conversation. So, it's like boundaries. They're yours to make. All right. Can you give some exercises for beginners on shadow work? Hope you are having a good day. Shadow work is such a wide, huge subject. I did a video on just shadow work that I recommend watching because you'll get more out of that than just a casual answer I can give you right now. But shadow work is something that you do throughout your entire life. It's not just one thing. It's your entire life is working through the things that other people have stuck on you, experiences that you've had that you're having trouble letting go of. Traditional therapy is a good start for shadow work because it helps identify what your issues are. And so, yeah, I would recommend watching the whole video because it's too important a thing to just have a casual minute answer for that. So Devil Blues says, Sophia, last night I also felt a similar sharp stab on my leg. Sometimes feel like something's crawling up my leg as I fall asleep. Need to bake some cookies, make an offering to be left alone maybe? I don't know. It could be Kundalini though too. It could be energetic rather than a being. And I have stuff like that happen to me. It feels external, but a lot of times it's not. It's an internal process of energy. So it's going to depend upon what's really going on. But it's up to you to decide. Desideratum says, are there archangels or any specific deities that you know of who can act as intermediaries between human beings and those in the Fae realm? If so, how may we invoke them? The Fae are kind of a thing in and of themselves. They're sort of like a species of spirits that have specific jobs and tasks that they do. And as far as I know, no, there isn't. Although you might have luck with like an earth deity, like Gaia or Pan or Cernunnos, one of the gods that deals strictly with nature. So if you were going to try and go that route, that's what I would recommend, is finding one of the strong nature spirits that are out there and that deal with things. And that actually could work, thinking about it. I think that might be a possibility. It looks like the sun came out from behind the clouds and is going to blind me. All right. Let's see. Can you speak a little more on the Akash? Not sure if I spelled that right. Yes. And the Akash is difficult to speak on, and I'm going to have to close that curtain or it's going to blind me, so I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay. I made it back. Now I'm not being blinded, so I won't get a headache. So, yeah, the Akash is difficult for a lot of people to comprehend, and some people can wrap their brain around it easily and some people can't. So if you think of it from scientific terms, it's kind of like the fabric of the universe that connects everything together. It's like, the field of energy that connects everything throughout time and space. And so, that's like and if you can get yourself up into the Akash and plant a seed, ironically, into the Akash of something that you want, it'll filter down, like we were talking about earlier, through the planes, from the mental plane to the astral plane, and then manifests itself on the physical plane. It takes time for that process. So, it's like it can work. So let's see. Hello, everyone. Siofra, hello. Do you think that someone can have sexual activity with other being in the astral travel, or is it not possible? No, I think that that's definitely possible. Not necessarily advisable. It depends on what's going on. But it's definitely possible. And sometimes, somebody that you know. Madam Isadora says, I smudged my home with the intent of closing any portals and protecting against unwanted visitors and haven't had sleep paralysis visitors since. I like the wire idea too. All right, cool. I'm glad that worked for you. I made a dream catcher for my granddaughter, and it worked like a charm. She'd been having nightmares every night. There was a reason she was having the nightmare from an assault that she experienced in real life that she was drugged at, during. And she did the stuff you're supposed to do. She did therapy and everything else and had processed it as much as she could on this level. But she was still having the nightmares every night. So I did a little research and made her a dream catcher, and she couldn't believe it that it worked. She wouldn't say anything for 2 weeks because she was afraid to jinx it. But yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of things that can help with that. And sometimes things you might be taking can cause weird dreams. Like I can't take kava kava or melatonin because both give me horrific, violent nightmares, bloody, violent nightmares. And that's one of their known side effects. Valerian root has a similar potential for that, but thank goodness I don't have nightmares with that because it's what I use for my body's, I have some kind of an undiagnosable spasm disorder that hits me from time to time, or if I don't take valerian root, it'd be all the time. So yeah, I use that on a regular basis. And certainly drugs can affect your dreams and your dream experience. So Desideradum says, also curious about what dominion is in terms of a human being in a space and earthbound spirits. Defining boundaries, what is dominion and why do we have it? If by dominion you mean natural authority, we have it because we have the essential essence of the Akasha connection. And it's because of that connection that we can decide that spirits can't bother us or, and choose how to interact with us and can tell them to go away. I didn't understand that that's what I was doing when I was a kid, but I knew on some level, probably from several different past lives, that if I told these black shadows that were attacking my brother to go away and not come back, or else, that they would go away and not come back because they were worried about the or else. So it's, the way they sometimes describe it gets kind of pedantic with this whole, you're a god, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes that gets into people's head as like a kernel of a delusion that can grow into something that is out of control later, not being grounded at all. But it's true that you have that, and that is part of your ability to set boundaries. It's like, it's okay or not okay for this thing here to approach me. And I have that right to decide. And when it comes to earthbound spirits, I deal with them with compassion because, they are confused and they don't know what's going on. Human spirits are different from like shadow people or creatures that are non-human that I've encountered out in different places throughout my life. Some of those are like a wild animal that you need to be careful about and, just kind of like hold your ground and not run sort of thing. So, not everything seems to pay attention to that ability to decide things. But there's certainly a lot of stuff out there that does. I mean, if you think about it, if you ended up walking down a trail and ran into a bear that had a cub, your ability to decide what things were going to happen would not matter anymore because it's like now you're just a person in a human body and you've got to get away from that bear because she's going to defend her cub. So there's like forces that are like greater than us that we don't really have control over. It's these more specific areas that we have dominion when it comes to that. And it's not that we have the right to decide how everything is allowed to do its job. It's like, that's not it. We have a right to decide our own boundaries and where they are. Because the universe is a lot bigger than us, and we're not the only things in it, I'm sure. That helps. So, Natalia says, lately I have been noticing a lot of sparkles floating about in the garden and some outdoor areas. Then I notice sort of wings, or no, sort of warps, if look closer, are wings. Even went to eye doctor and check out okay. Well, good thing to go to the eye doctor to check out okay, but this definitely sounds like fairy folk that you're probably seeing. And energy, little sparks of things floating around in the air is often energy I see, and sometimes they do turn into the little fairies, and sometimes there's something else, But that's a clairvoyant ability to see energy, so that's a good sign that you're seeing that. And it's always good to have the physical checked out to make sure it's not something more mundane. But yeah, cool. I like them. And you never know, you might get sparkles. I went to the skin doctor. I don't have sparkles in my house. And he was, checking my skin for cancer. And he was down on my feet, and he says, you have a glitter in between your toes. And I'm like, what? Glitter? How did that get there? I don't have any glitter. So, I don't know, maybe glitter comes from fairies. I have no idea how I got glitter on my toe, but I was like, I like glitter, so that's okay, but how strange is that? Thank you for your insight. Yay, manifest from the Akash seed. So don't laugh, but what are witch balls? I was actually thinking about witch balls the other day. I think I'm going to do a video on how to make a witch ball so we can get into it more. And it's basically a ball. And apparently this time of year is the best time to get the things to make them, because you can get clear ornaments that you can put whatever you want in it, and you fill it up with like pins or needles or colored thread and yarn. And the idea is that negative spirits will get stuck in there, like trying to figure out how to get out and get repelled and not be able to make it in your house. So that's the notion of a witch ball. It's a protective thing as well as a decoration. And so you can like hang them around your house, and your family might not know what they are if you don't put in the needles. If you use just the thread, the colored yarn and stuff, they go, oh, look, what this interesting decoration that you have here. So you get it, open it up, put the stuff inside, put it in. So I'm actually thinking of doing a video on that because it sounds interesting. I make witches bottles, but that would be sort of a cool thing to have. I wish to have a real person on Earth teacher guide. How can I find one? Well, isn't that the question we all have? I've been looking for one for my whole life. So good luck. I don't know. So Violet says, I found some little blue balls called witch balls, but never understood also. Mine were small, like weeds made out of blue solid dust-like substance. Anything reflective, you can charge to do that. You can make a mirror ball. You can, just program it to catch negative things in it. I don't think they have to be the one way. So weeds is beads. Oh, okay. Let me go back there and look at that. Mine were like small beads, I said, made of blue solid dust-like substance. What are shadow people? Thank you so much for answering my questions. This is really wonderful. Well, you're welcome. Shadow people are one of those sort of areas that there's a lot of, in the paranormal community, people aren't entirely sure exactly what they are. Most of the time, they don't seem to be positive. The times that I've encountered them, you can ground them out and, make them just become part of the earth again, whatever they are. Twice, when I was doing an investigation and came across a shadow person, I grounded them out and found a human spirit under them of a suicide. But I have also met them when they are just by themselves. So they're kind of like an unknown quantity, what purpose they have. We're still trying to figure that one out, so can't illuminate too much on that subject. I think my Kundalini has become active recently. This is Alec. I can feel energy traveling through my body, and I've been doing a lot of forced shadow work. I've also been very fatigued and unmotivated. Well, sometimes you just have to take care of yourself and, you know, do what you need to do to make sure your body doesn't expire while you're going through this kind of stuff. Sometimes fatigue has to do with, doing too much too soon and, trying to take breaks. So you have to maintain that sensibility. It's like, if you don't get it done in this life, you'll have the next one or the one after that. I mean, it's like, there's no point in pushing yourself to a limit where you can't function, because then you're just sort of taking up space that you can't do anything in. So, everything, when you're doing shadow work and intense emotional stuff, you need breaks from that. You need to fill that with something else that makes you feel good. So when you're going through that sort of sense of exhaustion and this is too much, find a project like a craft or, something that you enjoy doing, or even just going outside and sitting in a park, or, sitting in the sunlight, whatever it happens to be for you, that makes you feel connected to life and safe and comfortable. Have your favorite dessert, bake something that is sweet and smells wonderful, fill your house up with scents that you like. Control your space. And that's the trick, like smudging or, using smoke to cleanse your space only works if you fill that space up with positive energy when you're done and take control of your environment. That's sort of the whole point. You need to control not just your physical environment, like what you put in your body and how you treat yourself and, getting enough rest, etc., but also your emotional environment. So, if things are intense, find comfort things. And don't beat yourself up if you can't do the work. Like, it's not a schedule. You don't have to, like, I must accomplish these things within this period of time, otherwise I am now a failure and my life had no meaning. It's like, try to eliminate that notion that there is a time limit on becoming a better version of yourself. This is a lifetime thing. It's like, it happens throughout life. So, let's see. So Valya, or Valyan, but my tongue's not working. That's what I think. Also, Mom said it's probably because I talk to the plants in the garden and they like that. Okay, that's the sparkles. Devil Blues says, why is it said fairies hate iron and will avoid you if you have iron around? I have absolutely no idea. And I don't think that that's actually true. I haven't seen any indications of that. I know some people won't have an athame that's made out of metal if they want to work with fairies. Do I need to?
No, it's just a second.
Okay. I'm doing okay. I should be done fairly soon. It's been an hour and 23 minutes. All right. Ian was checking in on me to make sure I hadn't fallen off the face of the earth. Yeah, so, and I mean, like, I know people that use wood or crystal or shell or whatever for their athame so that they won't offend the fairies. And I mean, iron is actually good for the soil. Hemoglobin is iron that's in our blood. So if they were that sensitive to iron, they probably wouldn't want to have anything to do with anything living. So I don't know. It might have something to do with the idea of, like, the invaders coming into the areas where the fairy folk were, and they had, like, swords and things like that. It's just a guess. I don't know. I'm going to have to ask them when we get more acquainted, but so far they haven't, like, run from my room because I have an athame on my altar. And it's definitely metal. And I'm sure it has some iron in it. We had to cover it with nickel because, like, stirring it in salted water, it started to rust. So, yeah, we'll see. See what happens. That's what I think also. Let's see. Okay, back there. Contacting your spirit guide. I've been trying for so long when I meditate, but I never get any messages or see anything. Well, just try not to worry about it. They're trying to contact you. If it's not working, it's because you need to do, like, need to be more open or less tense or less focused on. They could be talking to you in ways you don't see, like in coincidences, in synchronicities and things like that. So if you've got an idea in your head of exactly how that communication is supposed to happen, that's probably why it hasn't worked. You need to be open to any way that they might want to communicate. And learning to listen to your own inner voice and knowing who you are will help when it becomes their voice. Then you'll be able to tell the difference. Because that's a tricky thing. Are there attractive type of witch balls, especially for fae folk and gnomes? I have no idea if they would like witch balls or not. It's something to ask them, I guess. I saw a clear ball with feathers inside. It was beautiful. Things that we like, I'm sure. Is shadow people are aspiring as a shadow and staring at you while you try to sleep? Sometimes people experience in that way. The way I can tell for sure if I'm in a paranormal investigation, if there's a shadow person somewhere during the day, is to go into the room where people don't want to go and turn off the light and then wait to see what happens with my eyes. And if there's a shadow person in there, my eyes won't adapt and see better. It'll get darker instantly, just like that. So that's kind of one of the ways you can tell if there's an actual shadow person around. I hope your back stays settled, yes. I'm going to try exercising tomorrow, so we shall see what happens, but I've definitely been anxious about bending over much because of that. So Devil says, thank you so much. This is so sweet. What you do for us. Thank you for answering our questions. You're welcome. I did set up a Patreon page. I don't feel comfortable with the idea of trying to sell stuff, and there's like so many. I mean, with the way YouTube is set up, it's this whole, tier thing and competition thing and selling items thing, et cetera, and that's just not me. It's like I am here, I'm for and available as much as I can be. So if you wanted to support what I'm doing, you can, go to my Patreon page, and right now people are giving me $5 a month. I've got 3 patrons, so thank you guys. And it's just a little bit, but it's not expected. So I did post that in the description so people could find the page if they wanted to, because some of you asked about how to help support my efforts. And I do have the wands that I make that are on my Etsy page, and I'll have to put a link up on that again so you can find it. I have 8 wands right now. I have to make some more, but I'm starting to get into that it's time to be crafty energy at the moment, so I might be doing that soon. So Blue Rose says, so sweet couple. Yes, we've been together since 1991. It's just been wonderful. It's been weird to have a positive relationship with someone after so many years of not having a positive relationship. And there's adjustments to be made in the beginning, because being happy was not something either one of us was used to. So it was interesting. So thank you for your time. And what are your thoughts on spiritual awakenings? How might you be able to tell if you're gone through the awakening? Well, hopefully we're slowly awakening as we go. So if you're talking about one of those like worldwide events, I tend to doubt that they're going to happen, because there's too many people out there who are stuck where they're at. But personal spiritual awakenings are definitely possible. Let's see. Tree through bedroom while sleeping. What is the easy page again? Etsy. I'll put it up in the thing when I get back in the house. And it's Siofra's Magic Alcove. It's my Etsy store name. So a search could find it pretty easily, probably. Andy says, do you believe the shadow people could also be subconscious projections into physical reality by unknowing, naturally powerful psychics? I doubt it. I mean, I suppose there's a possibility that some of them might be, but they don't really seem to be. The instances of them don't seem to be specifically connected to people, unlike poltergeist experiences and phenomenon, which are often connected to people who live in an environment and they only happen around them. And now apparently older women are becoming the new poltergeists. Apparently we get cranky as we get old, and those who get dementia sometimes throw things around and get mad. So I've seen that happen a couple of times. Yeah. But I don't think so. I think that there's something else. But I'm keeping an open mind, and that's the point of this, is to keep an open mind and not try to define everything in order to fit into some kind of scenario or narrative that we think is a better narrative. All this talk on shadow people, and my lights flickered a second time now. Not necessarily. It could just be those power lines aren't working right. Tree limb fell when walking. Tornado totaled van. Wow. Falling for no reason. Busted sternum. Most recent fall all since April. Wow. I am so sorry. That's terrible. Those are the accidents you were talking about earlier. Well, I'm going to have to get going since it's been an hour and a half, and that's supposed to be my limit. But we had a lot more people coming on today, so yay, and some really great questions. And keep those questions coming, and I certainly try to answer questions that come up on the different videos that I've done that are on there. So it's always fun. I never know what we're going to talk about. You guys keep me on my toes. So I'm going to have to get going, and we'll talk to you again. And send me the emails for the next one if you have specific questions you want us to talk about when we get on to our live chat. Okay, I've heard all your stories about your childhood and your past husband, and every time you look or talk to Ian, your face truly gets shiny. Well, I love him very much. All right, guys. Love you too. So thank you very much for your positive energy. Bye-bye.